Well, everybody, hope you're doing okay. Now, I haven't been doing much running recently, as you might have noticed. So what I have been doing is a bit of biking. So what I'm going to do today is do a Zwift FTP test, which is functional threshold power. It's basically an indication of how fit you are. It's kind of similar to detecting your lactate threshold in running, and it's certainly going to hurt. So I'm going to do it on Zwift, and I'm going to take you through that. So I'll just switch over to Zwift here, and I'm on the pairing screen. So I've got a Tacx Neo behind me, and I've got my Cervelo P3 time trial bike, and I've got a Garmin heart rate strap on here. So at the moment it's only 49 beats per minute. It'll be a lot higher than that shortly. So right, so we go on to here, and we want to do workouts, FTP tests. Now I tried the FTP light test recently, which is like a ramp test, and it didn't really actually get high enough. So I'm going to try the full-blown one, this one here. So let's have a look at it. My FTP, it's currently 219, so the aim of this is basically to see if I can get a bit higher. But it basically starts off after a little warm up quite sort of simply at 100 watts, which is pretty easy for a minute. Then it goes up 20 watts every time. So I think I'm gonna try and get somewhere in the 300 range. So you're going to get here fairly quickly. This is going to be a real ramp up of effort very, very quickly. And I think you get to the point that literally you won't be able to pedal anymore. And then it'll tell you what your FTP is. So let's start the ride. And we will choose a course. We want to do it on a fairly flat course, I think. Which other courses have we got here? Autopia. What's the fairly flat one? Volcano Circuit. Let's do this one. That should be a fairly nice and flat one, I think. Start workout, and now we need to get on the bike and get this going. Here we go. So here's the ride in front of me. Just a 5-minute warm up, although perhaps some of these earlier ones will be sort of effectively a contrived warm up. And you can see this gets very, very difficult very, very quickly. So for me at the moment, around 220, 219 is my current FTP. That's basically notionally the power that you could keep going for an hour. So I should be able to get a bit further than that, don't you? But as it goes up with 20 watts every minute, this is going to get hard very quickly, as I said. But 1 minute efforts perhaps is a bit more in my wheelhouse, I suppose. So in that sense, it should be good. And I've got my VC Godalming Haslemere bike top come triathlon club top, and I used to do a bit of riding, and in 2017 I did a lot of time trials. So I've even got like the Zwift top in Zwift, and I've got the same top in real life. So yeah, matching there. In terms of my shoes, these ones are a bit battered, but they're Specialized S-Works. I think they're about 2017. I've got speed play pedals on the back there. And I had a bit of a problem, I think, because these are quite old. I sort of made a cut there because it was irritating my toe a bit. And then back in the day, I was getting a bit of pain with my Achilles. So I've also made a cut there in the back, but that's the left one, which is actually the foot I'm having problems with at the moment. And then the right foot is pretty much intact. But yeah, these shoes are quite expensive. I think even 7 years ago they were like 300 quid, but they do hug my foot very well. They've got this Velcro at the top there and this boa dial system, so you can get them nice and tight and get them nice and narrow as well for me. So hopefully that should be good. The insert I've got has a bit more arch support. This is like the S-Works one with the maximum arch support there. You can hopefully see that, so that gives me a bit of extra protection, which I'm kind of needing at the moment. And I've sort of been trying, not this exact insole when I've been running, but a similar one. And physio recommends I need that, so pop that one back in, and let's get on the bike and get going. Okay, let's just take you through my setup here. I've got the original Tacx Neo bike trainer, so you take your back wheel off, and I've got a Cervelo P3 time trial bike. I used to do some actual time trials in real life, so I've got like a time trial saddle here and a fairly aggressive setup, so that's quite a lot higher obviously than the risers. I've got Durace STI on here, and I've got speed play pedals, so they're sort of like clipless ones. They allow a lot of float, and then rotor cranks here. And it's got an inbuilt power meter in there, but I tend to use the one just on the Tacx Neo, which I found a bit more accurate these days. I think the one on the actual bike reads about 10 watts higher than the Tacx Neo, so I won't cheat and say I've got any more power than I actually do. I've got an 11 speed block on the back, but when you do these tests, you're usually in erg mode, so you can kind of select then a cog kind of in the middle with a better chain line, and then it kind of adjusts the resistance for you. So if you pedal like faster, then the resistance comes off, and if you pedal slower then there's a bit more resistance. But I think it comes to the point when it gets like very high watts that I just won't be able to turn the pedals over, but we'll see how we go. I've also got one of these Wahoo fans over here which you can actually control remotely from your phone, so you can either turn it on manually or you can do it by your phone. So sometimes if I'm just doing an easy ride, I might just sort of put it on low, and then if it needs a bit more power to the fan, you can put it on there a bit more. So it goes from like 1 level here all the way up to 4, which will make quite a lot of noise. So a bigger test of the noise cancelling on these microphones. Okay, so got my bike shoes on. As you can see, they're nice and narrow for me, so I think anyone with a wider foot perhaps wouldn't like these, but you can actually dial these in quite tight. So even for me, I don't need to get these in as tight as touching the tongues as some in my running shoes. And a nice little flap there, doesn't really matter indoors, does it, there, and just takes a bit of pressure off the back there on this one. Bike shoes obviously last a lot longer than running shoes because you don't get the actual degrading of the actual midsole. So these are like totally stiff, so you can imagine a carbon plate and there's just no bend in these things at all, which is kind of the idea. I've also got my Garmin Forerunner 965 and a 955. I won't actually use the Garmin to actually do the test on this one, but we'll put it into bike indoor mode there, and then I've already got it set up with the trainer, so I won't do the suggested workout today. We'll just do a few free ride on this one, and I'll be able to collect the data on this one as well. So on the phone you can actually connect up to the Zwift Companion app, and you see it gives me the actual details here on the phone, so I can look at the actual details right on the top of my desktop here. I'm also going to the Wahoo app, see if I can control that fan. Then under devices there I've got my fan at the top, so I just tap on that, do that on manual control, and perhaps you can hear that in the background. You see my hair going there. So let's put it on 3 for now while I do the warm-up. Okay, we're all set. Let's get going onto the bike. Use my treadmill to help myself get on. We've just got a 5-minute sort of warm-up on this one, so I'll start my watches. As soon as I start pedaling, it should then show me, yeah, the watts up. So I think we are in erg mode here, so let's get up to a nice, comfortable... Oh, we're actually in free ride, so let's probably gear down a bit. Now the question is there, do I go into time trial mode like that, right down below? This is better on the time trial position. Perhaps get more power sitting up, but for this, you kind of think, well, what's the most comfortable position to be in? I'm actually doing more watts now than I need to do initially, but that will soon change. So yeah, very short warm up here. Heart rate very low, well under 100. Yeah, it's just showing there that it's going to use erg mode to ramp it up. This test seems to be like the shortest sort of warm up. You know, normally in a running race or bike race it might be like 20-minute warm up, but I guess as I said, you probably get 5 minutes before it starts to feel really quite tough. Steve Beckett ride on, he's the marketing manager at Zwift. I met him a few times. So it should take 10 to 20 minutes to complete. Well, we're already coming up to it. Right, so literally I'm about to start, so I think I'll sit up for the easy start just to get into this. Actually, we'll be going down in watts for a little bit, which is nice. Right, here we go then. 100 watts. Well, that feels nice and easy. This won't last. Not actually doing too much power. What you don't want to do in these tests is use more power than you have to, but the erg mode it kind of prevents you from doing that. You see, you already get average watts, so I don't know whether that sort of then counts. I was warming up sort of faster than that, wasn't I? So my average is going to drop down a bit. Let's see how high we can get this average. Heart rate is now dropped below 100. Right, it's a seated test. So we're coming on to the next one. 120 watts, which shouldn't feel too bad either. Just a bit more increase in power. I'm going to keep up a fairly reasonable spin rate here. Normally outdoors, I mean time trials, I might be even up to sort of towards 100, but I usually like to try and do 90. But in trainer, it seems to be more hovering about 80 or 75 at the moment. So yeah, it's interesting. There's my average. It's quite low at the moment, isn't it? So if I stop now, my FTP will be ridiculously low. Let's have a quick sip of drink while we're going. Still feel this is kind of part of the warm-up, but now going up in 20 watt increments. It's quite a big jump actually. When I did this before, it was only going up in 10 watt increments, so you feel like you get more time to get into it. See if it feels more comfortable in the time trial position. Everything then is you can't really see what you're doing. It does in a way actually. I should use my phone here to see how long I've got left. I'll put this on here so I don't need to look up so much. Right, we're up to 160 now. Starting to get a little bit harder now. I'm still fairly comfortable. Right, this is where the chat sort of needs to come off. Up to 180 now. I did 220 watts for 10-minute intervals the other day. Was it in 15? So I should be okay for a bit longer yet. The readout in the Companion now completely wrong. It's telling me to do 390 watts. Now I can see my heart rate is already starting to jump up, isn't it? As you expect in a ramp test. What's my cadence doing? Holding at 80, so not too bad. Okay, now we're coming up towards the 200 marker. Oh, battery's died on the GoPro, so that's no good. Right, next one is actually at my FTP. 220 watts. Here we go. Let's see if setting up feels any better. Not really. Right, this is when it's really starting to bite. Let's see if I can get into the mid 300s. That's my target. Right, the first big ramp above what's going to feel rather uncomfortable now. We're holding on, but legs are starting to feel it already. Right, and we'll bite now to 280. Come on, Tim. Let's get going. Okay, 300. Alright, see if I can get through this one. I think I might be nearing my limit. Yeah, I've knackered. Can't do it. Yeah. Okay. Okay, FTP 227. Well, I got an improvement, so that's the main thing. Just couldn't get that 321 gear over and done with. Maybe need a longer warm up, but I feel like I could do that again almost. Let's get this cool down now for 10 minutes. Yeah, well, at least progressing and got an 8 watts improvement of what I did in the last one. Yeah, it's scary to think that I actually managed 300 plus watts in my last time trial in 2017, but maybe that's sort of a steady state. You're not trying to ramp it up each time. I think the 20 watt gaps are tough. I think for me, I would perhaps sort of like get up to 200 quite quickly and then maybe do it in 10 to 15 gaps. Just going from 300 to 320 felt like I was just suddenly gone, but I think that's fairly accurate in terms of that test, in terms of where I got. So, yeah, I was perhaps hoping secretly to get up to Got up to the 340 mark at least, so it wasn't too far off, but we'll take it. I did a little run yesterday after a long walk, so trying to get back into it, but just really frustrating at the moment. So I have to see how I do. I've kind of given up all racing for the summer, which is nice. I got 1:1500 in, and I got those good 8s in the winter indoors, so maybe I'll try and get back from the indoors again. Maybe see what I can do next summer. It says we can do these FTP tests weekly. Well, it's such a short test, you'd almost like think you could do it and then do it again. Actually, it's almost tempting to do it again, actually. See if I get any better. But I think we'll call it a day for today. Some days you know that just doing one session is enough, especially when I'm kind of in a ticking over mode. So I got like half the stars there on the left, didn't I? I don't like to obviously see all the stars, but 640 watts, well, I'm not sure I could even get there at all, really. I mean, that's such an effort. That's over 3 times what's required. It's a bit like saying, could I run a 400 in 55 seconds? Well, I could back in the day, but I'm not sure I could even get up to the speed at all now. Well, especially not with an injury, but you know what I mean. Anyway, 75 watts feels a damn sight easier than 320 that we got to. Okay, you can see we're just coming to the end now of the actual workout. You get this little arch to say it's the last one. So I can obviously continue now, or I can just decide to stop. I think I'm going to stop. So there's the summary of my data. There, you can see that massive rise in power, and the heart rate there looks like going rising in parallel to the watts, doesn't it? So at least it shows that it's kind of giving my all. Maximum heart rate of 153 is a bit lower than perhaps it could be, but I think just perhaps my cycle legs gave out before my aerobic system on this one, although I wasn't far out. That's certainly into end of 5k race pace for sure, for 153 heart rate for me. And then I come back out of that mode back into the normal world. Right, so I think I'm going to stop now. Let's go and have a look at some data. So let's go and have a look at the Zwift data here. So menu N ride, and we got to 151 heart rate, not 153. Mine was bad. So critical power. Let's have a look at that. This shows you the power that you managed to keep going for the maximum period. So yeah, 1 minute power of 300 watts, didn't I? So that's the last one I actually got to, and I think perhaps I would have got, yeah, for a few seconds I managed to get a bit higher until I really couldn't turn that 321 over. Go back to the timeline and also put cadence on. So cadence was fairly constant, I would say. There's the actual test starting about there, isn't it? And actually for a little bit my heart rate went down because the actual watts went down compared to the warm-up. And it kind of reached an equilibrium point there around about into the 140s, and after that just completely ramping up both the power and the heart rate in unison. So my maximum heart rate I would say at the moment is 162. So by that extrapolation, if I was completely arrested and absolutely full on gas, it suggests I perhaps think by extrapolation might have got to the end of the 340, maybe into the 360. But yeah, I think otherwise I would have really just bombed out there. And it sort of gets so much harder with the 20 watts increase. When you're pretty much already at your limit, that really does make it rather tough. So that's okay, that. So let's just put a date on that. Today is the 6th of August. So as I said, it's nice to get an increase. 227 watts, an 8 watt increase, stopped in the 320 watt zone, and we'll save that. I've got a 5-week streak now on Zwift, so I've been biking now for 5 weeks, which perhaps shows how much time I haven't been running. So if I'm biking, that probably means I'm not running, which is a slightly annoying thing, especially in the summer. And then we can just exit from that. Also, actually, we'll have a look to see whether it's adjusted my FTP manually. There we go, 227. Actually, my weight has now gone down to 76.0, as I measured it the other day, so that's increased that. This is my racing score, 180.7. I think I'm now in the C group. I was very briefly, I think, on like a borderline A, B. I did one very short race in the A group, got blown away. But I think I was a solid B back in the day, but now I'm kind of just creeping back into the C's. So if I try and join a ride now, which is open to everybody, let's try this one, the Sprint Series. So yeah, see, it's recommending me into Group C, category enforced. So if I do a race, I'll have to be in the C group, I suppose. Right, let's exit that. I'll stop my watch, I've got to stop it, see what that gives me. And this one as well, the 955. So save that perceived effort. Well, it was as hard as I could be, but it wasn't that long. So I think I'll give it a 9 because I was trying as hard as I could. And then how do you feel? I'll say I felt okay, felt strong. Didn't really feel my leg or ankle doing that stuff. Do the same on this one. See if it gives me a new FTP. Well, that's interesting. So the Garmin watch has given me an FTP there of 225, which compares very favourably, doesn't it, to the 227 that I got from Zwift itself. Interesting, the 955, which I've actually tied to a different account, that's actually given me 218. So at least I've got an actual correction there, because that was previously not giving me a very good reading. But yeah, so I'm using the same heart rate monitor, but different Garmin account, so nice to know that they're reasonably well in line. Let's see how this looks on Strava. I think what will happen now is I'll get 2 readings, one from my Garmin and one from Zwift. I tend to record both and I delete normally the Garmin one thereafter. So here is the Garmin one, and it basically just sort of gives you that thing there. I also had that long period where I didn't stop the watch. So peak power here, what's it got? 1 minute 300, so that's exactly right, isn't it? And then it's not really telling me much, so let's delete that one. And then we'll look at the Zwift one. So the Zwift one then gives you the map and it gives you the little pictures here. So what have I got? Got a route complete one to get the summary one. Did I get one that's showing you the FTP? No. That's what they really could do with, isn't it? So ride at 280, what was my heart rate doing there at the time? 143. So I was grinding with it there, wasn't I? Down to 70 cadence. I think I was right on my limit. I remember I did that one and I did the 300 one, but yeah, that was struggling a bit for sure. So here are my best efforts. Yeah, 300 max power after 1 minute, and then I just crept up a bit higher when I crept into the 320s, but not by much. So if we look at the power curve now, so what I've got here, let's have a comparison with last year. I did a very little bit of biking, so I was kind of a similar fitness. So the boulder line here is this year. So that's kind of showing now that my biking is a bit better level than the very limited biking I did last year. All my sort of power curve numbers here are higher. I maybe just did a few little sprints there, but you can see here that my 1 minute power is pretty much identical. I mean, I could have gone a lot higher than 300 if I'd done that as a 1 minute off rather than as an end of a ramp test. But you can see here that down to say 20 minutes, like the other day I did 200 and yeah, it was more or less 210, wasn't it? In fact, it creeps up a bit more here. That's interesting. For half an hour I got 211, but what have I actually done here? A 15-minute one, about 220. So yeah. And then the FTP, let's show FTP estimated. So that's actually a bit lower, I think, because I did that specific test. I think you have to sort of work these specific tests. So it's saying this year 203 estimated, but I think it's just based on this graph, so not quite so good. Let's have a look at the data in a bit more detail. So the analysis. So you can look at each of these steps here. These are the laps. Yeah, so let's go through these. So let's look at the individual laps. So the first one here, this is the 100-watt target, and a cadence there of 76, heart rate barely, not even above 100, is it? And then actually the heart rate was even lower there, 94. Cadence there averaging 79, so it was a bit low perhaps, the cadence. And then heart rate starting to creep up. This is in the 140 range, but still very, very comfortable. Cadence hovering around about 80. And then we go up to the 161. Then I got my heart rate does start to shoot up then, doesn't it? And then cadence actually got a bit better. And then in the 180, cadence there 81, I think that's not a bad cadence on the turbo. Average heart rate starting to creep up into what we call sort of the upper end of easy running thing. And it's sort of holding fairly steady there at the 200 level. And I think now it'll start to bite. Yeah, big jump there. Look, 200 was 121 average, 220 jumped up to 128, and the cadence dropped to 77. So you start to feel, I was feeling that. 240, not such a, well, 6 beat rise there in the average. Maximum just 1 beat higher, 134 to 135. That was the 241. The 261. So that shot up another 4 beats there, and the cadence is dropping now to 74. And in the 281, average heart rate 144 compared to 138. So yeah, it really is just jumping up and up. Cadence now dropped to 71, so this is when I'm really struggling. And on that last one, where I averaged 300, 299 more or less, you look at the cadence there, 68, and average heart rate 149. Got the maximum there, and I did a very little bit there, or I tried to do that. But you could see that the cadence really was just grinding down, down, down. Yeah, you see the right there. The cadence had got down to literally a standstill. It looks like you climbing a big climb down to the sort of 40s. So then I knew it was time to stop, and that was it. So in terms of what I've been doing, if I just filter off just runs, and it does look on appearance that my mileage is actually quite high, but most of this is actually walking. So I've got a few weeks here, I'm averaging around about 40 miles. Just a little bit of running. I'd say perhaps of the 40 miles, maybe 10 miles is actually running. I tend to do a long walk and then a bit of running at the end. I've done a few runs where I've done straight out. This one here, 4-mile run at 9-minute mile pace, which was quite an effort. And then my godson Joseph, 14-year-old, was up last week, so we did a few runs. He's fit for a 14-year-old, but he needs to have a few little rest stops now and again. So that, in a way, that was quite helpful for me, really. But last night I was out walking the streets of Alton for City Strides, and I did a very little run at the end. Great to see Keely Hodgson running the 800. So yeah, it's just been ticking over at the minute. I've just got this sort of problem with my ankle, really, and into sort of like the Achilles. So it's just really frustrating. I did some 200s in Portugal back end of May, which I think I did a video on. I'm really pleased with them. I think they're about 32 average, and I think since then I've barely been able to run 200 metres without being in some sort of pain. So I don't think it was really the 200s. I think I obviously had some inbuilt weakness there. I had the whole of 2017 off running, more or less, and most of 2018 as well. I wouldn't say the whole of completely off, but I did about like now, I was sort of doing 1 or 2 runs a week, doing a lot of biking. Actually, that's when I actually got on the time trial bike behind me, the P3, and got down to 22.20, even doing a couple of 25s. Although the 25s I found a bit of a struggle just to maintain the position. I just over the hour, frustratingly. It was a 60 and something, so maybe one day I'll have another go, see if I can break the hour. My PB is, what is my PB? 55.28, I think, in the 10 mile, in the 25 miles. It's quite similar to my 10 mile bike running PB, which is 54.27. So the biking one is winning. I don't think either of them are likely to ever go down, but maybe the biking one is more likely than the running one. Well, I don't think I'm ever going to do 54 minutes for 10 miles again, for sure. I think I'll be struggling to do that for 1 mile at the moment. Anyway, so I hope you found this interesting insight into the training of an injured runner. What do you do when you're injured? Do you go on the bike? Do you go swimming? Do you do walking? Do you do rowing? Do you just sort of put your feet up and eat cakes and you know, wait for it to roll over? I think I could do that for a week or two, but after a while you start to realise you start to lose fitness. So I think if you're insanity, you have to go and do something, even though when you know that you get back to running, it won't be great, but at least it won't be a complete disaster, having not done anything for months and months and months. And you've got to watch the weight as well. I'm up to 76 kilograms, which is probably about 3 more than I really would like to be. But yeah, managing that just about. So I need to keep off the cakes, but that's quite difficult. All right then, hope you found this interesting. Like, subscribe, that, and see you next one then. Bye.